Okay, welcome back to part 2. We were in the middle of this last example on graphing a curve. This one was y equals 2 to the x. This is something called an exponential curve or an exponential function. And to really understand what's going on here, you have to understand the exponent rules. So if you want to understand how I'm getting these values, watch the exponents review video. Okay, we were up to -2, plugging in for x. That would be 2 to the -2. That's the same as 1 over 2 to the positive 2, 1 over 2 squared, which is 1/4. So we had some points here. At -3, we had positive 1/8. At -2, we now have positive 1/4. When I plug in -1 for x, that's the same as 1 over 2, which is 1/2. So -1 gives me positive 1/2 out. Okay, so what's happening is this is starting out very close to 0, and it's slowly rising. It's still fraction. When I get to 0, though, 2 to the 0 is just equal to 1. So this goes through the point 0, 1, 0, 1. And then if I put in 1, now I have 2 to the first power, which is 2. So 1 in for x gives me 2 out for y. And then if I do 2 for x, I get 2 squared, which is 4. So I have 2 in for x gives me 4 for y. Okay, so this is what the curve looks like. Something like this. So it goes up very rapidly, and then on the other side, I didn't quite draw this correctly, it actually gets smaller and smaller and smaller and approaches 0. Okay, never quite reaches 0. It just, the fraction goes down each time. Okay, so this is called an exponential function, and that's another example. Let's just take a quick run through again of the shapes that we saw. We first saw things like y equals a number. Okay, if you have y equals a number, it's just y is always a certain value, so that's a horizontal line. If you have other things like y equals 2x minus 3, or an equation that has an x term and a y term and nothing squared, that's a line, typically with some kind of a slope. Okay, you could have y equals absolute value of x, which looks like a V shape, right? You could have y equals x squared, which has a classic U shape. That's called a parabola or quadratic curve. You have y equals x cubed, which has an S-shaped curve, right? And then we have y equals square root of x, which looks like half of a x squared U shape, but on the side, so rises more slowly as x increases. And you have y equals 2 to the x, which is called an exponential function, which rises on the positive side very rapidly, and on the negative side, it's a fraction that keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and approaches 0. So these are kind of some classic basic shapes that you should be familiar with. All right, just to summarize this, you can always graph an equation by making a t-chart. Solve the equation for y first, and then plug in various values for x. You can use any values you like. I usually start with 0, and then I just work my way out in the positive and negative directions. Find the matching y, and view for each of these xy pairs, that's a point. So you can plug that in on the graph and then draw a smooth curve through that.